Hey fellas, good morning. I hope this finds you well. So thank you very much and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we are actually going to talk about one specific type of the reading module, the IELTS reading module. This is a type of question that is applicable for both students of IELTS general reading as well as IELTS academic reading. So today we are going to talk about matching features. Okay, so what's a feature? A trademark, a characteristic of something. Okay, matching features are all about representing the choices with their corresponding trademarks or characteristics. All right. So today's lecture agenda basically comprises of a sample IELTS reading matching features paper that we're going to read together, and then we're going to look at the questions. We'll figure out the answers, but the most important thing is we're going to look at the process that will help us generating those answers, right? After that, we're going to look at 10 spellings as well as 5 idioms and 5 words with meanings and sentences on a daily basis, because I don't just want this forum to be a place where I can educate people about IELTS and how to ace these tests, but also if anyone is struggling to enhance their basic English proficiency skills, well, it's a good place to start from here. I myself am no perfectionist in this field, but it always takes two to tango, and better late than never. So hopefully we can use these sessions to bring out the best in each other as far as English proficiency skills are concerned, as far as the basic understanding of the IELTS module is concerned, and hopefully we can expand to other topics as well. So thank you. Now, without further ado, I would like to share my screen and show you a sample IELTS paper on the topic of matching features. All right. So I hope everyone can see my screen fairly properly. So IELTS reading task type 6 matching features. Note, this is an extract. What is an extract? A portion, a section from a training reading section 3 text on the subject of the history of cinema. The text preceding this extract, preceding means the text that came before this extract, gave a general overview. What is the overview? A generic encapsulation. In other words, a summary. Okay, so this is a text based on the topic of cinema. Now, as you can see over here, it comprises of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs that we're going to read first, paragraph to paragraph. If there's any word that I find is a bit challenging, I'm going to explain the meaning of that. And once we read the entire passage, then we're going to look at the questions. Again, we're going to try to find out the answers to these questions. So let us begin in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most beneficent, the most merciful. The first paragraph. Although French, German, just make sure that you always pause after punctuations, that is commas, apostrophes, full stops. That's a very important facet of the English language, okay? So all the French, German, American, and British pioneers have all been credited with the invention of cinema. The British and the Germans played a relatively small role in its worldwide exploitation. Now, what is the meaning of pioneers? Someone who initiates something. Okay, for example, if you talk about from a Pakistani history perspective, so President Ayub Khan, he was the pioneer of the Green Revolution in the field of agriculture. He initiated the Green Revolution. So pioneer means someone who starts something. Okay, so worldwide exploitation means to commercialize something and to spread or disseminate it all across the globe. Moving on. It was above all the French, followed closely by the Americans, who were the most passionate explorers of the new invention, helping to start cinema in China, Japan, Latin America, and Russia. In terms of artistic development, it was again the French and the Americans who took the lead. Though in the years before the First World War, Italy, Denmark, and Russia also played a part. All right, so they're talking about the roles of different countries that that played their part in terms of establishing the cinema and spreading it all over the world. That is the general gist of the first paragraph, and it is always very useful to write it down somewhere so that when you're looking at it again in retrospect, you know what message the respective paragraph is trying to convey. Thank you very much. Let's move on now. In the end, it was the United States that was to become and remain the largest single market for films. By protecting their own market and pursuing a vigorous export policy. What is the meaning of vigorous? Very, very ambitious, very firm. And pursuing a vigorous export policy, the Americans achieved a dominant position on the world market by the start of the First World War. So what is the meaning of dominant? A very strong, powerful, and favorable position, a very strong stance. The center of filmmaking had moved westwards to Hollywood, and it was films from these new Hollywood studios that flooded onto the world's film markets in the years after the First World War and have done so ever since. Faced with total Hollywood domination, few film industries proved competitive. The Italian industry, which had pioneered the feature film, a certain type of film, with spectacular films like Quo Vadis, 1913, and Cabiria, 1914, almost collapsed. By collapsed as in they totally faltered, they lost their momentum. In Scandinavia, the Swedish cinema had a brief period of glory. They had a short time period of dominance, had a brief period of glory, notably as in especially with powerful epic films and comedies. Even the French cinema found itself in a difficult position. In Europe, only Germany proved industrially capable, while in the new Soviet Union and in Japan, the development of the cinema took place in conditions of commercial isolation. Moving on to the third paragraph. By isolation, it happened on a very, very limited note and a very separate scale, something that wasn't really, connected with the global sphere of things. Next up, Hollywood took the lead artistically as well as industrially. Hollywood films appealed because they had better constructed narratives, the special effects were more impressive, and the star system added a new dimension to screen acting. If Hollywood did not have enough of its own resources, it had a great deal of money to buy up artists and technical innovations from Europe to ensure its continued dominance over present or future competition. Next paragraph. From early cinema, it was only American slapstick comedy that successfully developed in both short and feature format. However, during the silent film era, animation, comedy, serials, and dramatic features continued to thrive. What is the meaning of thrive? To succeed, to progress, to flourish, to prosper, to proliferate, along with factual films or documentaries, which acquired an increasing distinctiveness. Distinctiveness means a special sort of recognition, a unique mode of, you could say, individuality, and increasing distinctiveness as the period progressed. It was also at this time that the avant-garde film, that's a special type of film, avant-garde, it was at this time that the avant-garde film first achieved commercial success. This time, thanks almost exclusively. You see, fellas, the reason why I'm giving you the meanings of these words is because sometimes the meaning of this keyword can mean the difference. Your understanding of the meaning of this keyword can mean the difference between a correct answer and an incorrect answer, which can go on to have a long, long, big impact on your score. So exclusively means almost entirely, almost single-handedly. So most of the credit went to the French, and occasional means a little bit. Most of the credit went to the French, but a little bit of credit also went to the German films. Okay, so once again, it was also at this time that the avant-garde film first achieved commercial success, this time thanks almost exclusively to the French and the occasional German film. Of the countries which developed and maintained distinctive national cinemas in the silent period, the most important were France, Germany, and the Soviet Union. Of these, the French displayed the most continuity. By continuity, you mean momentum, rhythm, consistency, longevity, right? Like they say in cricket, it's all about longevity, consistency. The French displayed the most continuity in spite of the war and post-war economic uncertainties. The German cinema, relatively insignificant, as in relatively means comparatively. So as compared to others, it wasn't that important. It didn't have that much vitality associated with it. The German cinema, relatively insignificant in the pre-war years, exploded onto the world scene after 1990. Yet, even they were both overshadowed by the Soviets after the 1917 revolution. They turned their back on the past, leaving the style of the pre-war Russian cinema to the émigrés. That's a certain name for the immigrants who go outwards, who escape their own country to another place for a certain particular reason, who fled westwards to escape the revolution. Next paragraph. The other countries whose cinemas changed dramatically. What is the meaning of dramatically? Suddenly. They transformed by a big, big margin. Okay. They showed a considerable impact in the level of change. The other countries whose cinemas changed dramatically are Britain, which had an interesting but undistinguished history. Undistinguished history means a history that wasn't really special, something to talk about, which had an interesting but undistinguished history in the silent period. Italy, which had a brief moment of international fame, a temporary moment of international fame just before the war. The Scandinavian countries, particularly Denmark, which played a role in the development of silent cinema, quite out of proportion to their small population. And Japan, where a cinema developed based primarily means mainly, the most important reason, where a cinema developed based primarily on traditional means their country's own norms and customs, their own procedures, primarily on traditional theatrical and, to a lesser extent, other art forms, and only gradually adapted to Western influence. What does it mean? Only gradually adapted to Western influence? Only slowly adapted to Western influence. Okay. So obviously, I will be attaching this PDF along with the answer key in the comment section. But if we had to take a quick look through at it, so we have read the 6 paragraphs that pertain to the matching information reading passage. Now we have some questions, 34 to 40. So look at the following statements, questions 34 to 40, and the list of countries below. Match each statement with the correct country A to J. Okay, so these are the questions 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Yeah, so in total, we have to answer 7 questions. Now, they say write the correct letter A to J in boxes 34 to 40 on your answer sheet. All right, now, these are all features that are given to you from 34 to 40. So in 34, the feature is it helped other countries develop their own film industry. 35, it was the biggest producer of films. 36, it was first to develop the feature film. 37, it was responsible for creating stars. 38, it made the most money from avant-garde films. 39, it made movies based more on its own culture than outside influences. 40, it had a great influence on silent movies despite its size. Yeah. Now, we are given these 7 features. Now, what we have to do, we have to match these features. Hence, the name of this topic, matching features. Now, the question is, Hami, who do we match these features with? We have to match these features with the respective countries, which are given below in the box. List of countries. So A is for France, B is for Germany, C is for the United States, D is for Denmark, E is for Sweden, F is for Japan, G is for Russia, H for Italy, I for Britain, J for China. Now, I always say when it comes to the checklist we had discussed in the previous class, right? It's very important for us to focus on the instructions. Now, what are the instructions over here? Write the correct letter A to J in boxes 34 to 40 on your answer sheet. So whatever answer you write in the answer space, it must take the form of a letter from A all the way to J. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. These are your different possible options based on your current understanding and interpretation of the matter. Now, also, it's very pertinent to note this point, and B, nota bene, you may use any letter more than once. Every question will have just one answer because it says write the correct letter, not letters. But there is a possibility that 2 or more questions might have the same answer associated with them. So once again, every question will have just one answer. As it says over here, write the correct letter in singular form. However, they also say to us, you may use any letter more than once. So there is a possibility, maybe that 2 or more questions might have the same answer. Okay, so that being said and done, let's say that you feel that the answer for 34 is France. You think that maybe France helped other countries develop their own film industry. आप लोगों का, let's say, ये perspective है इसके ऊपर. If you write France as answer 34, that's going to be wrong. You instead have to write the letter that corresponds. In that case, it would be A, assuming that is the answer. Okay, it's just conjecture at this stage. So it's very important for us to pay focus on the instructions, because sometimes if we don't, these silly mistakes, fellas, they end up costing us really big on a long cumulative scale. Trust me, been there, done that. Now, one more thing, if you remember, if you recall the previous presentation, all these answers in the case of matching features, they will come in chronological order. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's look in that sequence. So it helped other countries develop their own film industry. So let's look over here. All the French, German, American, and British pioneers have all been credited. I'm just going to move my cursor so you basically know which line I'm currently reading from. I'm right now at the first paragraph. All the French, American, German, and British pioneers have all been credited with the invention of cinema. The British and the Germans played a relatively small role in its worldwide exploitation. It was above all the French. Above all means it was mainly the French, followed by the Americans, who were the most passionate exporters of the new invention. Export means to send something out of your country. Helping to start cinemas, so France had the major role in starting cinemas in other countries. Now, look at it. It helped other countries develop their own film industry. So in this case, for 34, that's going to be France. But the instruction says you're going to write the letters. So what corresponds to France? That will be A for alpha. Okay. Next up, 35. It was the biggest producer of films. What was the biggest producer of films? Let's crack out this code as well. Okay. So we got the answer for question 1 over here in the second line of the first paragraph. Therefore, we're going to be looking below this line in terms of extracting the answer for the next question, which in this case happens to be question number 35. Okay. Followed closely by the Americans, who were the passionate exporters of the new invention, helping to start cinema in China, Japan, Latin America, and Russia. In terms of artistic development, it was the French and Americans, blah, blah, blah. Nope, I do not think I'm getting this information from here. Now let's go on over here. In the end, it was the United States that was to become and remain the largest single market for films. All right. Now, largest single market for films. In other words, making films. In other words, it was the biggest producer of films. So the United States was the biggest producer of films. What letter corresponds to USA? That is C. C for Charlie. So 35 is going to be C for Charlie. That is United States. All right. Next up, 36. It was the first to develop the feature film. Okay. Now, in this case, fellows, remember one thing. In that checklist that I gave you, apart from knowing the keywords, apart from knowing the headings and subheadings, apart from looking out for paraphrasing, you also have to underline the keywords in the question statement. Now, over here, what's the keyword? Feature film. It was the first to develop the feature film. Therefore, in other words, it initiated the concept of feature film. Now, I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to look for the term feature film in my passage, okay? Let's go. Now, where can I see feature film? There you go. The Italian industry, which had pioneered the feature film. Okay, what is the meaning of pioneered? It started the feature film. It was the first industry that initiated the concept of feature film. Now, if you don't know the meaning of pioneer, you'll kind of be in a spot of bother, okay? Which is why I always say this over and over again, be it IELTS, be it GRE, or be it an English proficiency test for that matter, it is precisely all about paraphrasing per se, okay? So if you look at number 36, it was the first to develop the feature film. Therefore, this will be Italy, and that will be H for Hammy. then we move on to the fourth question, that is question 37. It was responsible for creating stars. I'm sure I've seen this somewhere. So let's go up. Let's look for the keyword that is stars. Can we find it anywhere? Let's see. Yep, I can find that in the third paragraph. Hollywood films appealed because they had better constructed narratives. The special effects were more impressive, and this is the one that I was looking for. See, it becomes so easy when you just simply try to extract keywords from the passage. It's like the answer automatically manifests itself. It makes your life so much easier. It saves your time, it saves your mental resources, saves your intellectual capacity, and basically puts you in a better position to ace your IELTS exam, be it listening, reading, writing, or speaking, holistically speaking. So the star system added a new dimension to screen acting. Okay, so Hollywood, obviously that's going to be the States for us. So it was responsible for creating stars. That will be USA. Once again, the answer is C for Charlie. Now notice something. In 37, the answer was C. And in 35, the answer was also C. Okay, so in two cases, the answer is coming C for Charlie, that's the United States. Therefore, it pays homage, it proves this concept that you may use any letter more than once. Two or more answers might have, two or more questions might have the same answer. Doesn't happen always, but this pattern, this trend could be depicted over here. And in this case, it is most definitely being depicted. Okay, so I hope you got the basic understanding of this. Thank you very much. Now, moving onwards. Number 38, it made the most money from avant-garde films. It made the most money from avant-garde films. Very easy. Simply go up and look at the for the word avant-garde, right? It was at this time that the avant-garde film first achieved commercial success, this time thanks almost exclusively to the French and the occasional German film. Now, there's a catch over here. They're talking about two things, France and Germany. Which one do we go for? So therefore, you're going to go down, look at the question again. It made the most money. So out of the two, one made more money than the other one. This is where paraphrasing is very important. Almost exclusively means that France had the dominant role. Occasional means that Germany had the minor role. So they're saying made the most money. So they're talking about the country with a dominant stance on this matter, and that is going to be France. Therefore, in this case, the answer is going to be France. I mean, not France, the letter that corresponds to France. Obviously, in this case, it is A for alpha. Okay. So it's very easy. Focus on the instructions, focus on the headings and subheadings, underline the keywords, try to locate those keywords. Remember that it's all about paraphrasing, be on the lookout for paraphrasing, and most importantly, in this case, the answers will always be coming in chronological order. There, and you can see over here, all those answers have come in sequence. In no way has it happened that question 2's answer came first, followed by question 4, for example. All the answers come in a sequence. Therefore, use that concept. Once you've looked at the answer for a certain question, look at the one below that so that you can actually help yourself in saving the time. Okay, this could really help you in a later section of the reading module. Next up. It made movies based more on its own culture than outside influences. So basically, there's a country that I'm trying to look for over here that made movies prioritizing its own culture over the cultures of the external countries. Let's see for that. This is the keyword, traditional, theatrical. Okay, traditional, theatrical. Japan, where a cinema developed based primarily on traditional theatrical, means based more on their own norms and customs. Primarily means mainly. So Japan, the Japanese cinema, it clearly followed its own norms and customs over those of the other countries. Therefore, we can say Japan made movies based more on its own culture than outside influences. What corresponds to Japan? F for Franklin. So we just go for that. Okay, so 39 will be F. Okay, last but not the least, 40. It had a great influence on silent movies despite its size. Let's go for this now. Sorry for that. Let's zoom it out a bit. Oh, I guess much better now. Silent. Now, what's the keyword over here? Silent movies, okay? Let's go up. Let's look for the concept of silent. Denmark, which played a role in the development of silent cinema. Now, you might be asking that, Hami, the last answer is coming above the previous answer. This is clearly a deviation in the trend. But if you look, this entire paragraph, it's one single line. Sometimes when the entire paragraph comprises of one single line, there might be minor ups and downs in terms of the answer spacing, okay? So be wary of that. Otherwise, the whole concept remains the same, that the answers generally do come in chronological order. Apologies for that. So Denmark, which played a role in the development of silent cinema. Therefore, the answer for 40 will be Denmark. And that will be D for Delta. All right. So at the end of the day, no matter which topic it is, instructions, headings and subheadings, when you read, make sure you take short notes of each paragraph so you know what the main concept is. Make sure that you look out for the keywords, the main words. On top of that, make sure that you follow the chronological order and you are good with your paraphrasing. You factor these pro tips in consideration. There's absolutely no reason, fellas, why you can't get a phenomenal cracking score in the IELTS module. Yeah. So sorry for that. So we're actually done with matching features. And now I would actually like to talk about a couple of things more, because like I said, I also want this to be a forum where we can work on each other's, basic communication skills, that involves identifying deficiencies, our own structural deficiencies in terms of our interpretation of spellings, along with that, learning new vocabulary, right? So we need to learn new words, okay? We need to learn their meanings, but the most important thing is how do we use those words in everyday sentences, whether we're writing a book, whether we're shooting an email to any organization, whether we're liaisoning with someone, okay, whether we're indulging in any sort of informal chat with someone on any social media platform. It's good to learn new words, and it's very important to know how their context, how like the context in which they're being used. Okay, so from now onwards, along with these modules themselves, I will also be giving you 10 spellings along with 5 words with meanings and sentences, as well as 5 idioms with meanings and sentences. Okay, what are idioms? Idioms are a mode of communication. They indirectly carry meaning associated with them. They're generally used for informal communication, but it's always good to have a couple of idioms, especially when you're in a party or when you're, having a cool chat with your friend. It's always cool to have a few idioms, to really like lighten up the atmosphere like Snoop Dogg. Yeah. So let's go for that. All right. So like I said before, just let me zoom it in a bit so that everyone has access to it. Thank you very much. So like I said, sometimes, especially during the listening module, when people are trying to look for the right word, they have fundamental mistakes in their spellings, and incorrect spellings are counted as wrong answers, unfortunately. So we need to make sure our spellings are very strong. So from now onwards, I'll be sharing 10 spellings with you every day. I just want you fellas to please note them down, practice them again and again, because practice makes perfect, right? If you practice hard, you can win every battle. And at the end of the day, it's not the mountain ahead that wears us out, but the grain of sand in our shoe. So first spelling for you is adverse, ADVERSE. Second spelling is crevice, CREVICE. Third spelling is plaintiff, PLAINTIFF. Fourth spelling is adjourn, ADJOURN. Fifth spelling is luxurious, LUXURIOUS. Sixth spelling is collusion, that is COLLUSION. Seventh spelling is feign, FEIGN. The eighth spelling is prescribe, PROSCRIBE. Ninth spelling is trivial, TRIVIAL. And the 10th spelling is vinyl, VENIAL. I just want you to ponder over this for a second. I'll be right back in a second. Thank you very much. All right, well, thank you very much for being a patient host. Apologies for that. I just had to plug in the charger. I guess even laptops run out of juice at times. So anyways, these are the 10 spellings for today, and I just wanted to, note them down. And the spellings whose meanings you don't understand, I just want you to look up their meanings and try to make sentences out of them, compound sentences in which you understand the context in which they're being applied. Now, the question is, how do we make sentences out of them? How do we understand the meanings? For that, let me show you a document that I've prepared for that. So hopefully this will give you more clarity on the topic. There you go, fellas. I hope everyone can see the screen well. Thank you. So let me zoom it in a bit so everyone has access to it. Bingo, that's perfect. The first word that we're going to talk about today is collusion. That is COLLUSION. Okay. Nope, I don't want to get genuine office. All right. So collusion. What's the meaning of collusion? Collusion basically means an agreement between people to act together secretly or illegally in order to deceive or cheat someone. An agreement between people to act together secretly or illegally in order to deceive or cheat someone. So a sentence out of this could be, it is believed that they worked in collusion with the terrorist network. It is believed that they worked in collusion with the terrorist network. Collusion means a secret conspiracy of sorts. All right, so that's the first word for us today. That is collusion. Second word for today is feign. F-E-I-G-N, feign. Feign basically means to pretend or to put on a show. Feign means to pretend or to put on a show, right? Just to pretend to do something. A sentence could be, you know how everyone feigns surprise when you tell them how old you are, all right? When you tell them, hey man, you don't look your age, you look 10 years younger than you, they're like, oh, really? So, that's them, feigning surprise, pretending to be actually surprised. So, you know how everyone feigns surprise when you tell them how old you are, all right? Second word for us. Third word for us, proscribe. Proscribe. Proscribe means to prevent something from happening, to not allow something, or in other words, to prohibit something, okay? To prohibit or to not allow something, that is the fundamental meaning of it. Now, let's make a sentence out of it. The Athletics Federation has banned the runner from participating in future races on account of using proscribed drugs. The Athletics Federation has banned the runner from participating in future races on account of using proscribed drugs, on account of using banned or prohibited drugs. Okay, so I hope the meaning of prescribed is important. So if you just write that thing, if you, for example, if you just write a sentence that says, that drug is prescribed, yo, that drug is prescribed. I don't know what's the meaning of it, man, until unless you give me a context or a background. Therefore, don't just make a sentence, make a compound sentence in which there is a background that will enable the reader, from a layman's perspective to understand the meaning in which this word is being used. That is how, over a passage of time, how you integrate that into the greater vocabulary and how you are able to use more of these sentences in terms of communication. Okay, so because fellas, knowledge is absolutely pointless if you can't retain it in the long run. Okay, the fourth word for today is going to be trivial. Trivial, trivial. The meaning of trivial is something that is not important or serious. Trivial means something that is not important or serious. A sentence on that could be, I know it seems trivial, but I'm very much worried about the disappearance of my luggage. So for example, you just had an international trip where you just go to the counter, right? And the staff is apparently, they are not really that much, fussed up about it, don't really care. And you, on the other hand, are pretty much exasperated. So you're like, hey guys, to you, it might not seem something worth a lot of attention or worry, but it's actually very troublesome for me because it's my luggage, right? So trivial means something that is not important or serious. I know it seems trivial, but I'm very much worried about the disappearance of my luggage. Fifth word could be venile. Venile. V-E-N-I-A-L, venile. So venile means something that is not very serious and therefore able to be forgotten. Okay? Venile means something that is not very serious and therefore able to be forgotten. Okay? A sentence on this could be, the judge dismissed the venile crimes, as in he did not take those crimes into account which he thought did not have a very strong magnitude. Those crimes that he thought were not very serious. Okay, so he dismissed them. The judge dismissed the venile crimes and focused on the thefts of the animals. The judge dismissed the venile crimes and focused on the thefts of the animals. Okay, so these are 5 words for today: collusion, feign, proscribe, trivial, as well as venile. All right, that being said and done, we'll move to the final component of today's agenda, that is the idioms. So once again, I'll be giving you 5 idioms with meanings and sentences. Okay, so what are idioms? Idioms are used indirectly as a mode of communication. They're generally used in informal occasions. You should avoid using them in a formal encounter. Okay, and they generally have an indirect meaning that conveys a particular situation. Okay, they're used a lot in local jargon, and over a passage of time, they automatically have a meaning that ends up being associated with them, something that has to be taken in a more metaphorical capacity, but at the end of the day, they are there, right? So I must tell you, I will be having a separate session exclusively on idioms because it's something that needs to be discussed in more detail, in more depth. So we'll definitely be having that session as well. In the meantime, we'll be discussing 5 idioms daily, okay? I would very, very, very strongly caution you and tell you that please do not use idioms in the listening reading or writing module. However, in your speaking module, when you're giving your interview, you are most welcome to use them. Okay, and hopefully some of these idioms can go on to help you fellows in your daily communication. Okay, so the very first idiom is hard and fast. The very first idiom is hard and fast. Hard and fast means something that has to be taken as legally binding, something that cannot be changed, cannot be modified, and most certainly cannot be amended, good sir. Okay, hard and fast means something that cannot be changed. So a sentence of that could be, we have hard and fast rules for this procedure. We have hard and fast rules for this procedure. Next up, the second idiom for today is weather the storm. The second idiom for today is weather the storm. Weather the storm basically means to wait until situation improves. For example, you guys are just walking down Sashi Street and suddenly, it's just raining cats and dogs. And you're like, okay, man, this is a pretty dark situation over here. I don't have an umbrella or a suit or something. Just gonna take refuge at a bus stop or something till this rain blows its course in a different direction. So that is called weather the storm, to wait until something improves. You're gonna wait until it stops raining so that you can basically go wherever you're going, right? So weather the storm means to wait until the situation improves. So a sentence could be, she refused to resign intending to weather the storm. She refused to resign intending to weather the storm. Okay, she said that she wouldn't resign. Instead, she would, be brave, own it up, and, wait till the situation improves. I guess that's the meaning of weather the storm. Third idiom for today is to bear the brunt. To bear the brunt means to absorb something, to assimilate something, okay, to put up with something, to cope up with something. In this case, to bear the brunt means to put up with the worst of some bad circumstance. I repeat, to put up with the worst of some bad circumstance. It was the secretary who had to bear the brunt of the minister's anger. Like Tom Hanks says in Saving Private Ryan, gripes always work, upwards. And I guess when people have to throw their anger, they always give it to the juniors in the department. So clearly the poor secretary has to be the scapegoat in this case when it comes to absorbing the anger of that stupid minister, right? So it was a secretary who had to bear the brunt of the minister's anger. She had to put up with the worst of the minister's anger. Okay? Meet halfway. Meet halfway means to compromise with someone. Okay? Meet halfway means to compromise with someone. All right. So for example, you just want to have, let's say, a tarragon steak, okay, whereas your friend, right, he just wants to have like butter chicken or a pizza, right? So you're like, you know what, mate, let's compromise. This time you get the pizza. This time we'll get the pizza. Next time we'll probably go for the steaks, right? So it's like a compromise, something that's very important, especially in friendships, right? So meet halfway means to compromise with someone. Now, how do we make a sentence out of it? Both the lobbies settled their argument by agreeing to meet each other halfway. Both the lobbies settled their argument by agreeing to meet each other halfway. Okay, so that means to compromise with someone. Last but not least, turncoat. Turncoat, T-U-R-N-C-O-A-T. Turncoat basically means a traitor. Traitor is someone who betrays a certain cause, a certain organization, a certain bunch of people, basically who indulges in betrayal. So turncoat means a traitor. A sentence could be, Anthony is a turncoat because when someone acts as a traitor, when someone betrays, what happens is that person loses their, you could say, well, not being judgmental, I guess everyone deserves a second chance, but generally in the greater scheme of things, people lose their credibility a tad bit when this happens, right? So we can say Anthony is a turncoat and we should not rely upon him when it comes to getting the job done. Okay, so these are 5 idioms for today, ladies and gentlemen. Hard and fast, wear the storm, bear the brunt, meet halfway, as well as turncoat. Okay, so that being said, done in the next lecture, we'll be talking about matching information along with repeating these drills as before. So hopefully we can have this on a more regular basis. In the meantime, thank you very much for your support. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, right? And on top of that, I will be uploading this question paper as well as the answer key in the comments. And please, if you have any sort of questions, okay, you are most welcome to reach out to me in the comment section. It would be my pleasure to reply on a speedy basis. All right. Thank you very much, fellas, for being a wonderful audience. You all have a lovely night. Take care, mate. Cheers. Bye-bye.